3 years ago, developers behind my favorite game, Library of Ruina, released a new gacha game, and I've been playing it ever since, and I've had a lot of thoughts. In this video, I'd like to talk about it, maybe even help you figure out if this game is for you. So let me share with you my 3 years of experience with Limbus company. Limbus is Project Moon's third game after Lobotomy Corporation and Library of Ruina. Limbus is happening in the same world, and I think there is much to gain if you play these games first. Also, if you read Distortion Detective and Leviathan, and all the books characters in the game are based on, but you also do not need to do all that to enjoy Limbus. The story is perfectly fine without any prior knowledge. Anyways, Project Moon's previous games, despite staying quite niche, at least in the Western world, garnered a dedicated following. So how did Limbus come to be? Well, Kim Ji-hoon saw the profit that gacha games can lead to and wanted a piece of that cake. He is not shy about that. In the 2021 Q&A, he said that they are making Limbus a gacha game to secure wealth. For me, while I'm definitely a gacha games player these days, back then the only one I actively played was Genshin. And I must say, I was very skeptical. But Project Moon cooked up something special. Let me start with the game's biggest strength. The story. For a while now, I've been saying that Project Moon's story is my favorite story in fiction. The only thing that's close is Arknights, which I'm mentioning not only to sneak in Arknights glaze, but also because Kim Ji-hoon also likes Arknights. Peak recognizes Peak, but back to Limbus story. Brief, non-spoiler explanation. The story is set in a dystopian sci-fi city that's divided into districts, each governed by a wing that's in a possession of a piece of technology that ranges from unlocking or locking anything on a conceptual level to taking and selling time. The city as a whole is ruled by a head, a powerful governing entity that's completely fine with murder and all kinds of atrocities happening all around. So just like the US. Our protagonist is Dante. They are an executive manager, a sinner, but most importantly, a clock. Oh, and they have amnesia. Of course they do, this is a gacha game. They join a Limbus company bus with a guide, bus driver, and 12 other sinners. Each of the sinners, and a lot of the characters in general, are based on characters from classic literature and loosely follow their stories. The way it's structured, every canto is focused on one of the sinners. You learn about their motivation and their backstory. The story is very character-driven, which works excellently since what you pull in this game are not new characters, but versions of the 12 other sinners. This means the game can really focus on developing them. The sinners actually grow as people, even outside their own canto. And this holds true for side characters as well. If the character survives and you meet them again, they will be different. I guess I still haven't mentioned what the goal of Limbus company is, and that's because the game didn't mention it either. I've seen people complain about that, and I get it. It can be frustrating not knowing what you're walking towards, but personally, I don't really mind. I see it as a journey over the destination type of deal, at least for now. There have been some reveals in the recent story, but it's almost 3 years into the game, and I said I wouldn't get into spoilers. So for now, just collect the funny sticks without asking questions. And let's move to talk about the gameplay. And this is unfortunately where we will have to take a little break from the praise, because the gameplay fucking sucks. Very brief TLDR, you bring a number of sinners, and every turn you choose one of two attack skills, a defensive skill or an ego skill. What this boils down to 90% of the time is pressing this funny button. I heard people call the combat a watered down Library of Ruina, and I agree. It's like if you had a nice glass of grapefruit juice and poured it into a fucking pool. And don't get me wrong, even with this simple system, they did manage to do interesting things. Newly released identities are more and more interesting, occasionally they even do something unique, though a lot of them still play pretty much the same. The problem is that even with cool IDs, there is lack of interesting content to use them in. Most of the combat in story stages is filler. You'll be reading the story and suddenly they force you to take a break from enjoyment and press the win rate button a few times against fodder you probably already fought before. But I must say, the bosses tend to be fun. I was very happy that the final part of the newest canto was only bosses, and I had a blast with that. Hope this will be a trend and not a one-time thing. However, this was still just the final part of the Kanto. The previous two parts still had plenty of filler fights. What makes the boss encounters fun is that they tend to have a gimmick, something you need to pay attention to, something you need to figure out, almost like a puzzle. In normal fights, you kinda just need to hit the enemies. Another problem is just how RNG dependent the combat is. Contosses are random, speeds are random, skills you start with are random. And you know, I think randomness in games is great. My favorite game genre is roguelites. But here, sometimes you lose a 95% clash against an important skill, and suddenly 5 of your sinners are dead. Or maybe you started the fight with bad skills, the enemy found their sanity on you, and on turn 2, you might as well just restart. Okay, so since I mentioned roguelites, let's talk about mirror dungeons. This is Limbus' very poor attempt at a roguelite. It's also what you will spend most of your time on while playing this game. The biggest problem is that basically every fight in a mirror dungeon is a filler fight. Even the bosses here you can brute force. Whenever I'm doing my weekly mirror dungeon, I'll keep it on my second monitor while doing something else. I kid you not, I've done one while writing the script. If you do the standard 5 floors, there's nothing you have to pay attention to. It's a win rate slop. Where it becomes slightly interesting is where you go to the floor 15. I personally had a ton of fun when this released. Even did a guide. But there's still two massive issues. First is that there simply is not enough variety in the runs. Most of the gifts you want will remain the same. You cannot get a different build. Sure, you can run burn instead of bleed, but it only changes that you will get the items with the fire icon instead of the ones with the blood icon. It does not change how you play. The other issue is that it only becomes interesting on the last 3 floors, but to get there, you need to first get through the mind-numbing first 12 floors every time. Another game mode in the game is the Reflection Railway. It's an endgame mode, and I do actually like this one, because it's basically a boss rush. The biggest problem with this one is that there is not enough. The game is 3 years old, and there have been 5. They didn't even release one last season and just reran the first one with minimal changes. And I get that it's nice for new players who missed it the first time, but why did they even need to remove it in the first place? Overall though, I love Reflection Railways. I hope they do release new ones instead of just rerunning all of them over the next 4 seasons. Speaking of seasons, I wonder how long they take. 3 months makes sense? Whoa, almost double. But okay, the next one is shorter again. Oh my god! So the seasons in this game take a while, and yes, the production quality is definitely increasing as well, and I appreciate that. I like seeing the fancy animations, but this is a live service game, and they are leaving months without new content. They did start releasing event reruns, which is cool, but it's not new content, it's old content. New ID releases are also not actual content. You get maybe 10-minute story and a new person to do what? Run a mirror dungeon again? I'd love to get back to praise though. Despite all the complaints, this is still one of my favorite games, and if there's something worth praising, and I can't gush over the story again, it's the presentation. Let's start with music. It's unfortunately something I can't say much about, because how I rate music is purely based on vibes. What does that mean? I have no idea, but the music here sounds good, great even. Studio aim tracks are amazing and perfectly set the tone while in combat or reading through the story, and melee songs at the Kanto climaxes are both hype and tear-inducing. Similar with the art, I'm no artist, but all the fausts all the art is really pretty. It's not the typical anime art style, but one more stylized and gritty with muted colors, fitting the game's setting. And the voice acting, well, it's Korean. And I don't know Korean, but it always sounds to fit the situation and gets emotional in emotional scenes. And also... Beach volleyball! And the last thing I want to mention, gambling. This is a gacha game after all. So the gacha here is mediocre at best. The rates are good, with 3-star units at 2.9% and ego at 1.3%. Nice thing about egos is also that you can't get a dupe, so you always get a new one. And if you have all of them, it gives you a 3-star instead. But the problem is that if you get unlucky, the pity is 200 pulls. There is no other guarantee to get a free star. You also don't get that much of the pooling currency. Also worth mentioning, there are 2 stars in the game, but I kinda stopped releasing them. The last one was over a year ago. But there is a saving grace, a massive one, which is the dispenser. You can shard any ID, asterisk, 4 shards to get from simply grinding. Yes, unfortunately, it means you have to play a lot of Mirror Dungeon, but the gacha game where you can get characters from gameplay instead of gambling is insane. I did mention the asterisk though, which is that you can shard the newest ID in the first week, you can shard the IDs from the last season, and the new Valfrugus IDs. What is Valfrugus? It's basically a limited banner. This is the only time when a lot of long-time players, including myself, actually pool. But you can still spark even Valfrugus IDs. You just need to wait for the next one after they are released. So you can get every single ID and ego in the game without pulling. This is interesting because it actually makes it worth using the pre-made currency to refresh your energy 1 or 2 times every day. In conclusion, I think Limbus Company is an incredible story paired with flawed gameplay and trapped in a poorly managed live service model. If you enjoy a game where the main draw is the story, you definitely should try this one, but if you don't, this probably won't be for you. But this is still a free game, so hey, it might be worth giving it a shot. This will be it for the video. I'll appreciate any feedback in the comments. You can catch me streaming daily both here and also on Twitch. Thank you for stopping by, and bye!